consistent with the democratic culture we know from the USA. Important is that the result is accepted by everyone. It's easy to be a winner, but sometimes it's quite difficult to be a loser. We also have a tweet here from Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, who appeared to be taking a swipe at President Trump this morning. She was tweeting about a separate issue, Scottish independence, but she wrote in part, as we're seeing across the Atlantic just now, politicians who rage against democracy don't prevail. Guys, some countries are already anticipating potential changes to foreign policy. In Israel, a high-profile Arab-Israeli lawmaker, Ahmed Tibi, said that the Palestinian leadership would be prepared to work with the new administration if Joe Biden is elected. And over in Asia, investors are loving the good news for Biden. Japan's Nikkei index closed at its highest level in 29 years, guys. China's currency is also trading up against the dollar. And remember, a Biden presidency is thought to be somewhat more friendly or at least less combative toward free trade. So that's what we're seeing this morning. But guys, the waiting game over here, it continues. Joe, Savannah.
All right, thank you. We'll be back. Let's get a check now at your morning News Now weather.
For those who have been chained to their TVs for all week and don't know what it's like outside, meteorologist Janessa Webb is here to tell us what life is like outside. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Are you two ready?
I don't know, Janessa. I don't know. Sometimes you throw us some curveballs.
I need you to step outside this weekend. If you get a chance, our temperatures there are going to be soaring. It feels nothing like November. We have over 280 million people that are going to be above 60 degrees today. And then the 70s, they will continue to really take over as we go into your Saturday. Then we'll watch a few storms for the Pacific Northwest. But this weather is ideal, and it's been that way all week long. And it's going to continue as we step into the weekend. Let's take a look at our temperatures right now. Upper Midwest, this is unseasonably warm, nearly 20 to 25 degrees above average today. Look at Minneapolis, 73 degrees, and that extends into the south and southeast as well. When you see those reds, the pink, that's unseasonably warm, and it spreads across the south to the southeast, the northeast. It's pretty much everywhere except the Pacific Northwest. Unfortunately, going to watch a storm system in that area. But this really sticks around. I know we've been telling people break out that winter coat. We're just over 40 days until the official start of winter, but it's really not going to feel like that. More like a September feel across the area. So this is the weekend. Step away for just 15 minutes. It's going to be good. Good for your soul.
September is a great month, so I like the idea of it feeling like that. Janessa, thank you so much.
We're going to take a break now. So much more to come on this special edition of Morning News Now.
So much more to come. We'll break down the latest numbers from all across the country right after this.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school. What do you guys think? We're excited? Or back to work.
What's going on, everyone? Ben Hess here with Adobe Stock and Epidemic Sound. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to choose the right music for your project. Music plays such an important role in evoking emotion and feeling within the
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
How are the markets reacting to the state of the race?
CNBC's Bertha Coombs joins us now to hopefully answer that question. Bertha, good morning. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Savannah and Joe. This morning looks like Wall Street's going to start off a little bit in the red, a bit of a pullback after 4 straight days of gains. Markets are eyeing the best week, though, since April, even as the result of the presidential election and other key races remain undecided. The Dow and S&P are up 7% for the week, the NASDAQ nearly 9%. The Dow and S&P also posting gains of 1% or more in each of the last 4 sessions. That's the first time we've seen that since 1982. Investors are betting that Democrats take the White House and Republicans hold on to the Senate, and divided government lowers the odds of a tax increases or the potential for stronger regulation, particularly on big tech companies. Today, we're going to be watching for the October jobs report that's coming before the opening bell, about 8:30 Eastern time. Hiring expecting to have slowed to about 580,000 jobs. Unemployment expected to tick down, though, to about 7.7%. Obviously, with viruses hitting record levels, things are a little tough still in the job market. Back over to you.
All right, Bertha, thank you so much for that update.
Key battlegrounds hang in the balance as the final vote count continues this morning. Let's get straight to our election panel to weigh in on where we're at this morning. NBC News election contributor Rachel Cobb, Boston Globe political reporter James Pindell, and NBC News political contributor Jonathan Alter join us now. Good morning to you all. Jonathan, let me start with you. President Trump tweeting overnight, invoking the Supreme Court and the legality of the votes cast. What is your reaction to this? Where does this go from here?
Well, it's just more of the same from Donald Trump. This is what he's done his whole life, threatened lawsuits. He's being public in a shameless way about having politicized the Supreme Court. None of it's going to work for him. And you notice that there are no specific allegations that are made in that tweet. No evidence of wrongdoing, no indication that affidavits of wrongdoing and fraud are forthcoming, because they have none. They have no evidence. This is just bluster and bullying by Trump. I want to just tell you a very quick story. In 1990, I said something about Donald Trump in a documentary that was true. I was a young reporter. I got a very threatening letter, threatening a lawsuit against me for what I said. I took it to the lawyer at Newsweek, and he just laughed at it. He said, join the club. Half the people in New York have been threatened by Donald Trump with lawsuits. He will never follow through. He has no grounds to sue you. And that's where we are today. What's sad about this is that he's putting the whole world through this. And we are supposed to be an example for the world. And now we are an embarrassment in front of the whole world.
Rachel, we know this doesn't just go to the Supreme Court the way the president suggests, but what is the likelihood of any type of election issue going before the Supreme Court eventually, and what's the threshold that needs to be passed to get to that level?
Well, it's very low because the only reason it would get to the Supreme Court, I mean, number one, you have to have an actual issue that needs to be litigated that courts would take seriously. But let's say we did. It really would have to come down, as it did in Florida, to one state where the Electoral College is in the balance and it comes down to a few thousand votes. The likelihood of that is so slim as to be not something that I think anybody needs to worry about right now.
Now, James, the president, we've heard him cast doubt on this election. We've seen in the past how his supporters follow his words. Now, right now, we're seeing a lot of public-facing people who are sort of in the president's camp not necessarily agree with what he's saying. But what about his followers? What about these protests? What about what we're seeing in Arizona? How do you think what he's doing right now is going to affect them? What do you think we'll see from them?
Well, it's not helping, but one thing we don't really quite understand is because this process has taken days, if that makes this anxiety amongst his supporters worse as they hear and see his tweets and hear what he said even yesterday from the White House, or if it allows for some time of grieving, to be frank with you about it. At the same time, the other interesting thing I think we're actually watching in real time is that when Donald Trump headed into the New Hampshire primary and the Iowa caucuses in 2000, remember, he only had 30%, 35% of the Republican Party. By the time the general election happened, he had about 90% of the Republican Party. As he's president, he had 95%, 96%. Remember, he had more Republican support as a sitting Republican president than Ronald Reagan did. But I think one thing we're seeing this very week is that number was 95% and voted for him in droves on Tuesday is starting to come down. I mean, Mike Pence, of all people, didn't even speak out until yesterday about 6 o'clock last night. There's been a lot of silence among Republican leaders as they've been watching this process play out, partly because of Trump, partly because they're not sure exactly what to say right now.
Jonathan, you're our historian here. So considering the tightness of this race and the potential of heading to a recount in maybe at least one state, maybe more states, what does history tell us about the likelihood of an overturned result because of a recount?
I think it's very slight, actually. And to me, the key moment was a tweet by Scott Walker, the former Republican governor of Wisconsin. And he basically put up the white flag. He said, yeah, they can have a recount here in Wisconsin. We've had them on several occasions after votes. And on one of them, that it changed 150 votes. On another recount, it changed 300 plus votes. Joe Biden is ahead by 20,000 votes in Wisconsin. So a recount could be relevant in Georgia, where the margin is right now is about 1,000 votes. So a recount could change the results there. But anytime there's anything over 5,000, 10,000 votes, a recount changing the outcome, it's very slim. Look, we are like a space capsule right now, re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. On re-entry, the space capsule goes on fire, but you have an anticipation that in all likelihood, it's going to plop down placidly in the sea and the astronauts are going to be safe. So that's where we are right now. The capsule's on fire. We're in re-entry. But I think we're going to plop down and be okay.
I love it. I love an analogy. Now, Rachel, there's been a flurry of legal challenges across these battleground states. We were prepared for this beforehand, but now we are actually seeing it. They're for a myriad of different reasons. How would you describe the merits of these challenges so far, and do any of them seem likely to progress?
I don't think any of them are going to progress. I mean, there may be a handful of things to say these ballots need to be segregated because they came in at a particular time and there's a particular case about this, but everything is extremely narrow. I mean, the main story of this election is actually how smoothly it went, about how few issues there were. And it's actually so worthy of celebration at this moment in time, because in the middle of a global pandemic, we were able to completely change state policies across the country to expand voting for early voting and vote by mail and ensure that people were able to cast their ballots. And we had record turnout and we had very few problems. So the whole story of this election is actually a resounding success. And I may point out as well that the Republicans actually did very well, except the presidency, we still don't know. But at all other levels, they did very well. And I think in part that explains some of their silence.
Jonathan, Rachel, and James, we're pretty much out of time right now, but we thank you guys for helping us delve into some of these issues.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure we'll be checking back with you more because this is not over yet.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Savannah.
No problem, guys. So,
Thank
of
you.
course, this morning, all eyes on PA and GA, Pennsylvania and Georgia, not
PA
to
and
mention
GA, I like
Arizona and Nevada. I'm gonna market that. But we know
Nevada,
more.
don't hold your breath.
In Nevada, yeah, they're doing
Same
their
in
own
North
thing.
Carolina,
But
yeah.
we're going to be keeping an eye on those. Votes are getting tighter in a lot of those states, is constantly changing. We'll be with you guys all morning, keeping an eye on that.
Absolutely. Stick around for more of this special of Morning News Now right after this.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school.
When you're fighting to save America's family farms, every decision counts. That's why at Moink, we trust NetSuite for all our numbers.
With NetSuite by Oracle, you get a full picture of your business. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/farm.
I hate putting eyelashes on. I'm bad at it. They're always uneven. The glue takes weeks to get off of my eyelashes. So let me tell you a little bit about Glamnetic magnetic eyelashes. I have always wanted to try these. They're the viral magnetic liner and lash brand. Glamnetic carries the world's first 6-magnet lash, which allows for maximum hold. Magnetic lashes are perfect for people like myself who kind of struggle with applying lashes or just straight up don't want to deal with the messy lash glue, because that's a pain. Glamnetic has a paraben-free magnetic liner that has a super strong hold. All you have to do is apply the magnetic liner and then you magnetize the lash. Bro, it's like flawless. Look at that. Oh my god, that took literally 10 seconds. What? This is like some Harry Potter magic. Oh my god, you guys. Come on, you guys. Look at that. And look, that's not going anywhere.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
from every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good morning again. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Joe Fryer, and this is Morning News Now. Here's where the presidential race stands at this hour. Right now, there are 6 states that we're waiting to call, with Joe Biden still at 253 electoral votes and President Trump at 214. With the race tightening in Pennsylvania, we're waiting for updated numbers there. As you can see right now in Pennsylvania, President Trump still holding on to a slim lead, 18,000, but Joe Biden has been closing the gap, and we are expecting more numbers this morning still to come out of Philadelphia.
Georgia as well, about as close as it can get after Biden took the lead overnight. He's now ahead by just 1,096 votes, and that's with 99% of the vote in. We're also waiting to hear more from Arizona. 90% of that vote in, with Biden ahead by 47,052 votes, as President Trump has eaten into his lead a bit there. And Nevada, well, they are still counting. You may have seen that on the internet, but we are waiting for that result as well. And the popular vote, which, of course, doesn't decide who takes the White House, but is always a popular talking point. We will bring that board up in just a moment, but there's that Nevada difference. Biden ahead just 11,438 votes. And the popular vote that Biden is also leading in, though, again, that does not determine who gets the presidency, but Joe Biden is up in that by over 4 million votes. Joining us now to make sense of all of this, where these races stand, when we will hear anything substantial, is NBC News political editor Carrie Dan. Carrie, we're lucky to have you back with us. Now, Georgia is on my mind this morning. It has been since about 4 a.m. when we saw those numbers come in. President Biden took the lead after Clayton County released their count early this morning. Where else are we looking in this state? What's that 1%, and what might we hear next?
Well, one thing I think you're going to hear about in the coming days is going to be, or today and tomorrow maybe, is going to be the outstanding military and overseas ballots. Those can arrive up until 5 p.m. today and be counted. And elections officials are waiting for those and going to take a look at those particular ballots. There could be as many as 9,000 of those. We know that there's about 9,000 that were requested that had not yet been returned. So that's a number that we're going to keep an eye on. Also, Clayton County was the only county in Georgia that was counting overnight. We expect that there is some outstanding vote in those Atlanta suburban areas, Gwinnett County. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see and get those results from the state of Georgia. But always, as always, keep in mind, this race is within that threshold of a 0.5% for either party to request a recount. So we could be heading in that direction, and election officials there are getting ready for that possibility.
Carrie, Pennsylvania has had some notable, if not gradual, movement. We know Erie County flipped blue. What else are you seeing, and where are we seeing Biden make his gains?
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned Erie County. Every political reporter has talked a lot about Erie. Everybody has the spreadsheet, right, of the counties in America that voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012, and then voted for Trump in 2016. There are 3 such counties in Pennsylvania. Erie is at the top of everybody's list, and it was very noteworthy when Joe Biden went ahead in Erie. The other 2 counties, one is Northampton. It's north of Philadelphia, kind of an exurban, suburban county there. That's another one that Donald Trump won by about 3 or 4% 4 years ago. Biden is winning it by about half a point. And then in Luzerne, and that's the third of these 3 big counties, right? You've seen many stories in print, byline Luzerne County, because this is another one of these famously flipping areas of the state. Now, Trump won it by 19 points 4 years ago. Biden is not winning it now, but he has cut that lead to about 15 points in Luzerne. So if you look around the state, it's not just vote that's coming from Allegheny. It's not just vote that's coming from Philadelphia and the collar counties. It's also votes that are coming from places that don't look like that at all. Joe Biden is in a couple cases flipping those, and in many cases performing just a little bit better than Hillary Clinton. And that's what's contributing to his growing competitiveness, trying to catch up to Donald Trump in these final days.
All right, let's move west now and talk Nevada. So they're making slow and steady progress counting votes. We talked about this last hour. I'm sure we'll keep talking about it. Everybody is talking about it because it's sort of taken the internet by storm. I think a lot of people who normally might not know a detail like what's going on with Nevada's vote count are aware of it because of the pervasive memes online. Can you explain to us first just why it's taking so long so everybody can understand and where the race stands here?
Well, what Nevada did is they sent out ballots automatically to every registered voter. This is a first for them, and it's new to have this many ballots, mail-in ballots coming in. So there's a lot of security that's involved in this, making sure that every vote is counted and is counted once. So that's what elections officials there in Nevada are saying. Look, this is taking a while because we're making sure that we're doing it right. Now, we thought we were going to get a little bit more vote out of Clark County yesterday that might allow us to make a call. That didn't happen, so we're waiting for more today. Again, like the vote in Clark County has been breaking about 2-1 for Biden, at least from what we saw yesterday. There's not an indication that that's going to change in the new vote that we're going to be seeing. But election officials in the state are just saying, hey, look, we just want to make sure that every vote is counted. but every vote is counted once. And to do that, we have to have a bunch of security and administrative measures in place. And that's why this is taking longer than a lot of people on the internet and watching around the world might like.
Yeah, at least entertaining us amid all of the waiting here. So
really is.
let's move to Arizona, Carrie. So protesters have been demonstrating outside of Maricopa County's ballot counting center. It's a hotly watched race. It's sort of the opposite of what we're seeing in Pennsylvania and Georgia, where Biden has had the lead, but President Trump has been slowly cutting into that lead. What are we looking for there?
Again, and before and during and after election night, Maricopa County is the center of the universe when it comes to Arizona. It's where the majority of the population lives and votes. It's a famously swing county. Whoever wins that county, at least in the last midterm and presidential cycles, has won the state. This is a place that voted for Donald Trump, but it voted for Kyrsten Sinema in 2018. So we're waiting for votes there. And what's really key is that what we think we're going to see today is at least partially going to be votes that were mail ballots that people physically decided instead of putting in the mail, they were going to actually bring to a polling place. How those votes are going to break, we don't really know. The Trump campaign is hoping that they reach this magic number of 59%. That's what they need to get statewide to catch up with Joe Biden. And I think we'll get a sense when we see this next tranche later this morning at 11 a.m. Eastern is when we're expecting to see some of this vote. We'll see whether or not Donald Trump is able to hit that mark. If he is, this is going to be extremely, extremely close in Arizona.
Now, Carrie, finally, North Carolina, it's going to take a while to declare a winner there. Why is that?
So North Carolina will accept absentee ballots until next week, until the 12th of November. So we're kind of waiting on those. North Carolina has very extensive absentee mail balloting. They start sending out their ballots on September 4th. They're the first state in the country for that county started sending out mail ballots, and they're just processing those. It's difficult to get a sense with a state with that much mail ballot exactly what the electorate is going to look like, how much is outstanding, how much is we're going to see being returned in the next few days. So that's really what we're waiting for. But both sides, both Republicans and Democrats, think this thing in North Carolina is going to go in Republicans' way, both for President Trump and probably in the Senate race there. We're still waiting on a call here at NBC News, but Cal Cunningham, the Democrat who was widely expected to do well in that Senate race, appears to be trailing Republican Tom Tillis in North Carolina.
Carrie, thank you so much.
The election may very well come down to Pennsylvania and its 20 electoral votes. At this hour, election workers are still counting ballots, and we could get new numbers soon from Philadelphia. Joe Biden is narrowing President Trump's lead. NBC News reporter Mara Barrett is in Pittsburgh on the other side of the state, which is also still counting. So, Mara, Pennsylvania, too close to call. You're in Allegheny County, one of the counties we're watching very closely. What's happening there?
Well, Allegheny County is going to start back up counting their final 35,000 ballots in just less than an hour. So as soon as I'm able, I'm going to head over to the warehouse so we can watch the process that's happening there. We spent all day there on Wednesday. And so basically what's happening, these 35,000 ballots are ones that are replacement ballots. They have to check the voter rolls. They have to make sure that they're going through everything by hand because these ballots weren't able to be scanned due to crinkles in the ballots, some issues with dates. They're going to fact check these by hand and then continue to process and count them. So that will be happening throughout the day today here in Pittsburgh. And we look at the overall picture in Pennsylvania, 35,000 votes is definitely a significant chunk of what we have left in terms of getting full reporting out of Pennsylvania.
Now, Mara, another area we're watching closely, as Joe mentioned, of course, across the state, Philadelphia. What's the latest on the count there, and when could we see those final results? And what are we really expecting them to do here with these numbers?
Yeah, so I knew you would ask this question. This is what everyone is looking for. I just got off the phone with a spokesperson for the Philadelphia Commissioners. They have no timeline. They will not tell us when the next dump will be. So we are all sitting on the edge of our seats. But basically 50,000 votes left in Pennsylvania to be counted. And based on the rate of return we've been seeing, it still could be most of today, depending on when this next dump comes in and how much progress they made overnight. So we will just continue watching and waiting.
The theme of this week. Mara, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mara. Let's get to the battleground state of Georgia now, where new numbers did come in overnight, and it brought Joe Biden ahead. But it's still razor thin. Ballots are still being counted, and the former vice president is only up by 1,097 votes. Now, NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander is joining us from Atlanta. Blaine, good to see you again. Good morning. Now, Biden pulled ahead overnight, as we just said, that razor thin margin. How many ballots still need to be counted? Is there any word when we might get the final results here?
Well, that's exactly the question that we've been posing to the Secretary of State's office all morning long. How many outstanding votes are there still left to be tallied here in the state of Georgia? Now, at the last update, this was last evening, they were looking at about 14,000 or so. But again, a number of votes have come in overnight since then. So we're still waiting to get the final tally. But Savannah, in addition to that load, those handful of counties across Georgia who still need to upload their votes, there's another batch that we're watching for as well, about 8,900 or so ballots that could arrive by the end of the day. And those are the military ballots and the overseas ballots. Now, they could be, as long as they were postmarked by Tuesday, they can be accepted if they are received today. So that's a whole other batch that could possibly tip this thing one way or the other. Now, when you're talking about a margin this thin, this incredibly the thinnest of razor thin margins, it also lets us know that we are solidly in recount territory. It's almost a foregone conclusion at this point. And the Secretary of State's office even conceded that yesterday, that they are going to be most likely a recount, even though soon after he made the caveat that it's very likely, in all likelihood, he said, the recount doesn't actually change the results. So a number of things that we're watching. We're expecting to hear from the Secretary of State at the Capitol later this morning, and we'll pose all of those questions to him. Guys.
Blaine, President Trump's son, Donald Jr., was in Atlanta last night addressing supporters, once again making false claims about widespread voter fraud without evidence. A judge in Georgia has dismissed a lawsuit by the Trump campaign over these kinds of claims. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this was a lawsuit that was filed by the Trump campaign in conjunction with the Republican Party here in Georgia. It was filed down in Chatham County, which is about 3.5 hours to the southeast. It's the county that contains Savannah, Georgia. Well, the lawsuit was over absentee ballots, but really very quickly after it was filed, it was dismissed by a judge. The Trump campaign was essentially alleging that a Republican poll worker had seen somebody slip in some absentee ballots after polls closed on 7 p.m. Tuesday. But again, that was thrown out by the judge. But I think it's important to note when it comes to election security here in the state of Georgia, Secretary of State Raffensperger has been very clear, one, in praising the way that he believes the state handled this election, but two, almost daily kind of touting what he calls the security measures that are being taken here in the state of Georgia. Now, keep in mind, this is a Republican Secretary of State, but as he sends out his releases, he also includes a list of election security things like locking down the absentee ballot drop boxes at 7 p.m., saying that there are surveillance cameras, watching the ballot drop boxes essentially, and having, a state monitor in the room in Fulton County when the largest county was counting their ballots. So it's certainly very interesting. Despite these claims without evidence, we're hearing the Republican Secretary of State here saying, listen, our elections are secure and we're making sure that that's the case.
Now, Blaine, we're also learning about another legal hurdle for elections officials in Georgia before they can certify election results, which would be the next step. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's called a risk limiting audit. So that's something that's actually a new process under Georgia law, and it's something that has to be done before the state can certify results. So essentially what it means is that they're going to go in and take a sample of ballots, kind of a statistically significant sample of ballots, and go through them by hand instead of scanning them into a machine. Go through them by hand, make sure that the tally essentially shows what the larger tally is showing. It's another layer, the state says, of security to make sure that there were no issues. There were no issues with machines. There were no issues with scanning. It's done to kind of weed out any sort of abnormalities. Now, they've said that they're going to start this process today, guys.
And Blaine, let's ask you about those two other big races in Georgia. Both Senate seats are up for grabs there. We know one for sure is going to go to a runoff in January. The other one might be going to a runoff. It's razor thin right now. And this could impact who controls the U.S. Senate. So where do those races stand?
Yeah, so just as we're watching these numbers so closely when it comes to the presidential race, every time we see more votes come in, it also impacts the Senate race. So this is the race between incumbent David Perdue and Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff. As it stands right now, neither one of them has 50%. Now, that's important because in the state of Georgia, you automatically go to a runoff if neither candidate gets just above 50%. And as of right now, David Perdue is sitting at about 49.8%, and Jon Ossoff is about 47.8%. So again, if neither of them crosses the 50% threshold, we're looking at not one, but two Senate race runoffs here in the state of Georgia. Going to be a very busy time coming up, guys.
And probably very busy for you specifically. Blaine, thank you so much. You're such a rock star.
Thanks, guys.
Let's go inside the Trump campaign as they are ratcheting up their legal fights in the remaining key states. NBC News correspondent Carol Lee joins us now. So, Carol, we heard from the president last night, but what is the latest you're hearing from the campaign as these results continue to come in overnight and Joe Biden has made some gains in two key states?
Well, they say they're planning on continuing their legal strategy. There's a lot of defiance. That's kind of the posture that the Trump campaign and the president is putting forward publicly. Privately, there's an acknowledgement that this is going to be very hard for the president. Everything basically needs to break his way at a time when almost nothing is, not since we saw those initial returns on election night. So there's this push to create this message that somehow this election is unfair. And what we've seen from the president is trying to create this alternate reality. Take a listen to what he had to say last night.
There are now only a few states yet to be decided in the presidential race. The voting apparatus of those states are run in all cases by Democrats. We were winning in all the key locations by a lot, actually. And then our numbers started miraculously getting whittled away in secret. And they wouldn't allow legally permissible observers. But ultimately, I have a feeling judges are going to have to rule. But there's been a lot of shenanigans, and we can't stand for that in our country.
There are a few things in there I just want to point out that are false. All those states are not run by Democrats, particularly Georgia. It's a Republican governor, Republican secretary of state. Republican governor is an ally of the president's. The numbers didn't miraculously whittle. They're just counting mail-in ballots that have come in. And there were observers, both Republican and Democrats, allowed in to watch the ballot counting process. So the president is putting out this message. He's digging in on it, and he really is ramping it up as he increasingly looks like someone who knows that he's on the verge of potentially losing re-election.